We are here to talk with Senator Leahy. Would he be available in person or by phone?
Senator Leahy, along with the delegation, has worked diligently to help facilitate communications between the Vermonters and the Air Force, and will continue to do so. That's what we've been doing.
So
We've
will
met a
Senator
couple of
Leahy-
times.
Will Senator Leahy meet with his constituents?
Senator Leahy has had his staff, as has the rest of the delegation, meet with interested constituents.
So is the
At
answer
this
no?
point, what I'm telling you is there's no commitment to a public hearing at this point in time. The senator feels, again, it's the Air Force's decision, and there have been 8 in 2012 alone of public hearing and public forums, and he continues to take information and tries to act as a communicator between the Air Force and Vermonters. The fact that the Air Force extended their public comment period by over a couple of weeks was in response to what they heard from Vermonters, and they continue to look at that.
The problem, John, is that we have met repeatedly with you and other of the staff from the congressional offices. We've laid out what's in the environmental impact statement, the science and the facts about the impacts, and then we hear Senator Leahy talk, and there's no sign that that any of that information has been conveyed to him or that he understands it. And that is probably the primary reason that we feel it's necessary to not talk with you again, but to talk with the Senator Leahy, who is elected to represent the constituents of Chittenden County and the rest of Vermont. So it's very dismaying that now you're telling us again that for almost 3 years he hasn't wanted to, he's not been available, he's not had time to meet with anyone who is concerned or opposed to the basing of the F-35.
Senator Leahy has been very responsive through his staff, as the rest of the whole delegation. I can tell you there's no fewer than 6 people on our staff who've been working on this issue between here and D.C. Senator Leahy is well informed. You have a difference of opinion than the senator does, and we respect that. You're here now. I'm listening to what you have to say, but I can't commit to a public hearing at this point. There have been plenty of them.
No immigrant communities. They sent information and requests for information to 5 Indian tribes, mostly outside of the state of Vermont. Not one refugee resettlement program, minority group, low income, poor. Those are the kind of people who don't have a voice. And we're very concerned about that. And it seems that a presidential executive order 12898 is being completely ignored. We can't even get responses to letters to us regarding minorities, children, and the poor who will be confined to the 65 DNL zone unfit for residential use.
Part of our concern as well is the fiscal mess that our country is in. And I think one of the really strong concerns that I have and that our group has to do with the escalating and skyrocketing costs of this weapons system, now deemed to be the most expensive weapons system in the history of the United States. Countries around the world, Canada being one last week, who has terminated their order of 65 F-35 planes, which is going to force up the unit cost for these planes even further. So we feel last week when I read in the Burlington Free Press that the senator said that this was not a congressional matter, this was a matter to be handled at the local level. I find that hard to believe. And the reason I find that hard to believe, Mr. Tracy, the reason I find that hard to believe is that with so many people in this country hurting, so many people doing without, our country having been gutted by Wall Streeters and people who created poor mortgage programs so that our fighting men and women could be in Iraq and Afghanistan for the last 10 years fighting 2 wars, to come back to what? To a gutted economy in which there's no jobs for these veterans, to come back to veterans benefits that are being cut back. And my question to you and to the senator is, wouldn't it make more sense, given this vulnerable time in our country, that we should not be talking about such an expensive, bloated, and completely ineffective weapons system, but talking more about the human capital in this country and in our state?
Senator Leahy has always invested heavily and will continue to invest in the human capital of this country. The Department of Defense has, and I don't want to get into a big debate about it, but the Department of Defense made the decision to go with the F-35 as the next fighter platform. They've made that decision. This decision is about where that plane will be based. Now, Senator Leahy continues to work, and he's working right now down in D.C. to avoid going over the fiscal cliff, to make sure we have a farm bill that is passed so farmers don't go out of business, and he's working to keep money in there so people who need food can get it. He's got a long track record of doing that. He's done it ever since he's been in the United States Senate, and he'll continue to do that.
That really sounds good.
It's the truth.
That's a nice sound bite. I really appreciate that, but I will tell you that with a weapons system that expensive, with countries around the globe turning back toward the United States, feeling the coercion of the government and Lockheed Martin, and for Canada, our closest neighbor and a great ally of this country, to turn around and say, we're no longer taking those planes. I would think that the senator and that the rest of the congressional delegation would have a very open and sympathetic ear to this issue, purely based on the macroeconomics of it, and then there's the whole local issue, sir.
It's a DOD decision. This discussion is about basing the F-35s here. That doesn't take away from Senator Leahy's long history of making sure that Vermonters have food in their stomachs, education, houses to live in, open space to recreate, making sure that people can resettle in this country and be supportive. He's got a long history, and he's been in for years as either ranking member or chair of the Senate Foreign Operations Committee, has been invested money in countries abroad to try to get people the food, the education they need so we don't have conflicts in the first place.
Right.
So he's just been doing that for a long time.
Yeah, we have heard.
I hear what you're saying.
We've heard a lot of this before, and I think, we appreciate your job. Your job as staff person is to defend Senator Leahy even when he makes atrocious decisions.
You and I have a different
now,
opinion there.
I would think that if you could get on the phone and call Senator Leahy now and say there's a group of 8 or 10 people from the concerned and opposed to the F-35 basin in Burlington, then he could get on the phone and he could talk to us directly, because we have, as we've said, talked to you many times before, and we appreciate your position as the staff person for him. But I think what we really need to do is talk to Senator Leahy.
I appreciate that. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to call the senator.
John, do you have any statement from
David Carl has statements, so we'll have him send.
Can you tell me why you're not going to call the senator?
Senator Leahy is down in D.C. working right now. We're not going to have a phone call
Is
conversation.
he in a
about it
meeting
today.
that he cannot get out of?
I'm not going there with you. He's not
You don't
gonna
know what
have
he's doing?
You don't?
I'm not. Hey, look, he's not going to have a phone conversation
So
with you
he's told
today,
you that
and
he
he's
will
not.
not have a
That's
phone
not
call?
true. You're putting now. Look, if you're going to put words in my mouth, that's why.
Well, he's
if
had
we're going to have a
plenty of notice that we were
Yep.
coming.
And he is right now working on issues that matter a lot to this country, like the fiscal cliff, the farm bill so we can feed hungry people, and the Violence Against Women Act. He is engaged.
But
Believe
he can't take
me,
10 minutes.
he
He
will
can't
take.
take 5
I will
minutes.
tell him you came in. I
5
will
minutes.
share with him what you said.
5 minutes?
It
He
isn't
can't
work.
take 5
It isn't
minutes?
working that way. Today, it's not working that way.
You cannot talk out of both sides of your mouth.
Well, I'm not, and I'm
You
not
are.
going to argue with you.
You're
I'm just
talking
telling
out of
you.
both
No,
sides
I'm
of your,
not.
yes you are. And the
Well, I
reason
don't
you
think
are
I am.
is if he's down there and you're saying he's so focused on the fiscal cliff, okay, and I'm a Democrat. Okay, I've respected Senator Leahy. On this issue alone, I am completely not supporting him. And I will tell you that the fiscal mess that this country in is directly related to the military budget in this country. And with so many people hurting, so many different people across our country, it seems an obvious conversation amongst an issue so important to our local community and to our country as a whole. I would think that the senator, given that we gave you at least 10 days advance warning, would be more than open to having this, increasing this dialogue. As you well know, the clergy came out in Burlington this week saying that this issue needs to have more dialogue. And so we're looking to you as our elected representative, not you personally, but to the senator. And we're expecting that we're going to be heard. I've written letters to the senator, and I've been fed back pablum, honestly, from you, and stuff that really feels frustrating. And so I've never protested before in my life, and I'm here today.
Nor have I.
I'm here today.
I have a letter here from the senator, and it's fraught with mistakes. It's one mistake after another. It's like the senator doesn't know the basics about this plane. He says that the Air Force has mitigated the sound of the F-16, but the Air Force has actually increased the sound of the F-16 by going to a system where they need to use the afterburner. It's vastly increased it. That's why there's 200 homes in South Burlington being demolished now. Why would the senator not? Why would the senator miss that if he was so informed?
What about transparency? He's the king of advocacy for transparency, and yet he was silent on the FOIA. The denial of the FOIA. What is to hide?
I'm not, okay, does anybody else have anything else? I respect you coming in, I appreciate the fact you're coming in, I just don't wanna keep going over the same stuff.
What about the
Yeah.
FOIA, the denial of the
I have
FOIA?
I have a question, because, I mean, one of the things somebody mentioned earlier, that has you read the environmental impact statement. Well, the problem a lot of us have is the environmental impact statement that was written and researched many hours by the government clearly states that it's going to damage these communities. So the question that I've asked him or written in is, if this clearly states that it's going to damage these communities and possibly put all these people out of their homes, does he not understand this, or is he choosing the jobs over these communities? Does he not believe the impact statement? That's
There are differences of opinion, but I will tell you. In fact, the reason that the National Guard has the F-35s here is because the National Guard is responsible for the air defense of this country. Well, the F-16, what did I say?
You said F-34.
F-4s were the old ones, well, the F-16s. So there's another reason that they're here. It's not simply a jaws versus noise. And there are differences of opinion about what the impact will be on the communities with the noise. And hopefully the Air Force, if and when the Air Force makes the decision, that they'll do what they can to help mitigate those. Again, folks, this is an Air Force decision.
Can I ask one follow-up?
Yeah, but I don't want to get into a
No,
big
I'm
back
not.
and forth. I know, you're being fine.
So this was the draft impact statement. So the real impact statement comes out and it's word for word says the same thing. It's going to damage these communities. Would he still support this?
We'll see what, the senator is supportive of the F-35 being based in Burlington.
But the final statement hasn't come out, environmental impact.
We'll see when it.
So that's my question. Will he still support it if it says it's going to damage these communities?
Of all the monitors, and we'll just have to wait. I can't say what's gonna happen with the final EIS. I don't even know when it's gonna come out. I know it's set back in time. It could be whenever it is, but that's part of the Air Force process of basing the jets. Did you have something you
Well, I
wanted to
just
say?
wanted to say that it's very strange to many of us that the senator is so adamant in his refusal to meet with the people who are going to be potentially so severely affected by this. He's advocating a plan which will affect thousands of people in this community over a period of probably 40 years. And people are extremely concerned about this. And he steadfastly refuses to meet with these people. It makes no sense.
He has staff like me.
He does that.
Sir, with all due respect,
Isn't it true that you're
Mr. Tracy, with
refusing
all
to
due respect,
answer?
you're his filter. You're not the senator.
I
I mean,
share the
and-
information I get with the senator.
Well, no. But the point is that you're not my elected official.
That is correct.
I want to
Work
talk.
for
We
you.
want to talk to our elected official.
And you have different ways to communicate. You've done it by phone call, by email, and by letter. And we continue to respond to those, and we'll continue to. Is there, so, if you have.
So we're going to
any
give
other-
you one last chance. We're giving you one more opportunity to say that the senator is going to meet with these people who are disaffected, who are in many cases unable to understand the language as immigrants, who are children and elderly in our community. We're giving you one more chance right now to have you put us through to the senator, or to agree to a meeting when the senator is in Burlington, so that we can have an immediate hearing for these people who need to have that right to talk to their senator.
I will share your concerns with the senator and your petition. Jimmy, you sent me an email thing earlier today, which I have shared with staff in DC, and we'll see the senator sees it. I am not going to commit to a phone call, and I'm not going to commit to a public meeting. They're already been aimed at. So that's where I am at this point right now.
Thank you for your
right.
convenient
Hey, John.
transparency. Thank you for your convenient
If you
transparency.
want, I know a lot of you are written and called. If you want to make a comment on one of these sheets, do that as well. And I'll read, well, I'm just telling you, it's another way to communicate. I'll read them, I'll send them down, and the chief of staff will see them, share them with the senator.
Well, we're very.
Hey, John,
Well, I appreciate your comment.
John, is it clear that this decision relies only with the Air
The Air
Force?
Force makes the calls the way they base.
And
Well, it seems to me that, we're still a democracy.
Yeah.
We have elected officials. In Canada, the Parliament is very upset with the F-35, and they're the ones who brought pressure on the administration, as well as the Department of Defense, to shelf the F-35. And that can't happen here in.
Air Force is making the decision as to where the F-35s will be based.
but the senator has.
Let's go, let's go.
Doesn't he have input?
Let's go.